Today on Studio 18 Live, presented by Old Venice Pizza Company, we'll be recapping the men's and women's basketball seasons, as well as discussing postseason play, the recent hiring at Auburn of former Tennessee Volunteers coach Bruce Pearl, and a current update on our spring sports. To join the conversation, tweet your questions using hashtag AskRoss or email us at studio18@olemiss.edu. Here now are Michael Thompson, AD for Marketing and Communications, and Director of Athletics, Ross Bjork.
Good afternoon and welcome to Studio 18 Live, presented by Old Venice Pizza Company. This spring, the show is all about getting your questions answered by our Athletics Director, Ross Bjork. So every 2 weeks, we're going to bring Ross into the studio, and we're going to do just that. There are a couple of different ways you can submit your questions to Ross. You can use Twitter and the hashtag AskRoss, or you can visit OleMissSports.com. Look in the gray bar at the very top of the screen and the Ask Ross hashtag. From there, you can submit a form that's very, very simple, and you can get your questions submitted for the show that's in 2 weeks. So thanks, Ross, for coming back to the show. We got maybe our 8th new set.
You guys are mixing it up.
We're constantly trying to improve Studio 18 Live.
The creative team is always on the lookout for new ideas.
Yes, looking for a comfortable set.
Good.
So both basketball seasons are in the books, men's and women's.
Right.
Both of them, I guess, in a little bit of a different place. You have a first-year coach on the women's side, and you've got AK on the men's side, coming off a big tournament berth last year and winning the conference tournament. But that was the 2012-13 season, and now we're 13-14. So how do you look back on those seasons and evaluate where we are?
You're exactly right. Both programs are, in different places. A brand new, young, exciting head coach in Matt Insel, and then, an established head coach in Andy Kennedy, who's only, 46 years old, and still has a great window ahead. I think the thing for us in evaluating programs is we never want to reinvent a system that I think already works, and that's really taking our core values and using those as our guide to say, are we academically excellent? Are we concerned about student-athlete welfare? Are we socially responsible? Do we operate with integrity? Do we operate in the community? And that means, selling season tickets, and how's our fan base reacting? Are we integrated with the university? And then the last thing is, are we winning? Are we competitive?
Right.
And if we're not winning, are we competitive? Like on the women's side, we lost a total of 7 games by an average of 7 points. Some of those were 10-point losses. Some of them were 1- and 2-point losses. And so you look at the competitive side, and we may not have the win-loss record that we like to have on the women's side, but we know we're building with a new coach. So you look at all those factors that go into a program and say, are we doing the things that will make us successful, now, but also, in the future? And look at all the assets that we have to work with and say, do we have a chance with this head coach? And in both programs, we have a great chance with both head coaches. We're excited about the future. Matt's our guy on the women's side. Andy's our guy on the men's side. And we think we have a bright future. And I think the key word on the women's side is, really remodeling. Matt has used that term because of our history. And I think on the men's side, I think we've hit a groove now that we can really get into and say that the best is yet to come, because we have a new arena that's breaking ground right now. So we have that to recruit to. We've got a great basketball practice facility. We've got an established head coach who has a great record the last 3 years in the SEC. You look at where Andy took the program from when he got here. We had 4 losing seasons in a row. He hasn't had a losing season since he's been here. You look at all those factors, and I think the groove that we can hit on the men's side is really, really strong. And we'll have a pretty new roster next year.
One senior.
With a lot of returners as well. A few more seniors than that, perhaps. But I think we can really hit a stride with Andy as our leader and our guy, our coach. And he's really earned the right, based on what the program was when he got here and where he's taken it, to get us in that groove, take us down the path for success. And we wish we were at an NCAA tournament site. We wish we had to cancel the show today.
Right,
to be at an NCAA tournament site. That's the goal every year, to be in the big dance. But we know we have a lot of things to offer for both programs. And I think we're just now hitting a stride in men's basketball that we can point to. And then on the women's side, I think it's a matter of a couple pieces that Matt has on the way. And I think we'll be back on the winning side in the very near term.
Yeah, I mean, with one senior and Marshall leaving, the roster will look a lot different next year. I mean,
you're talking about next year.
Yeah,
right?
It will not. It actually won't look a lot different. It'll have a lot of familiar faces that are guys that are playing up and being groomed and have gotten better, which is big. And then on the women's side, what was interesting about them is you could really see improvements almost game by game. I mean, by the end of the season, there weren't a lot of teams that wanted to play our women's hoops team.
The key word is competitiveness.
That's right.
We were competitive, and I think you're right. I mean, I don't think anyone wanted to play Tia Faleru down the stretch or Valencia McFarland because they were playing at the peak of their game, and I think we saw that in the SEC tournament by beating Arkansas, and then really had Auburn on the ropes, to the last couple minutes, where I think just our depth, really had a factor in completing that game and winning that game. So I think the pieces are there. On the women's side. And on the men's side, I mean, look at Jarvis Summers' development. Look what he did. Yeah. Look at Anthony Perez's development. Our young guys, Saiz and Colby. I think we saw spurts. Now we got to bring in that consistency factor to them. And then some of the veterans that will be returning next year, where do they progress?
Right.
And I think in order for our program to take that leap, those guys need to take that leap, and we'll see where that goes. So a lot of great pieces of the foundation, I think, on the men's side to build on, and then a lot of new faces on the women's side that I think people will be excited about.
Yep. So, and you mentioned being at a possible tournament site today, and it is unfortunate that we're having the show. But what is that? I mean, that tournament has become it is a giant now, and so you're gonna have wall-to-wall basketball. It's already started this week with the first four, but then tomorrow and Friday, Saturday and Sunday, it is insane as far as how much basketball is going on. What does that tournament mean to the NCAA and even to the conference?
Well, you look at what it meant to us last year. The run we had last year, and what that value of that exposure. Really can't put a price tag on that, and so. What we have to do is we have to maximize that exposure. And so the value that it brings is you're on every platform that's possible. Social media, primary television, secondary television. Last night the games were on True TV.
Right.
You've got obviously all the online applications that you can access. So all the mediums, all the platforms, you're being discussed as part of the field. And so the branding value that brings to your program, to the institution, to the league, is really immeasurable. And so I think the exposure value, you want to win, you want to advance, but just being in it.
You're on the bracket.
Yeah,
you're on the bracket that millions of people are filling out.
Absolutely. You're being talked about by Dick Vitale.
That's right.
All the talking heads in basketball. And so that's the goal, is to be, in that conversation. And so for our league, we only had 3 teams.
Right.
For 2 years in a row. Under normal circumstances, you look at what we did, we were 9-9. I look back at one of Rod Barnes' years. He was, 8-8 in the conference and made the NCAA tournament as an at-large team. So, I think what we have to do as a conference is we have to talk ourselves, and obviously we have to win, and especially non-conference games. We have to get ourselves back in the national conversation that we have great basketball. We have the #1 overall seed. We won the national title, a couple years ago with Kentucky. We won it 2 years in a row with Florida in 06, 07. So we have to get our basketball conversation back up to a high level, and I think we can do that. I think we're poised to do that. The league is making it an emphasis that March Madness should mean something in the SEC. Yes, football is going to drive a lot of things, many things, but we have to get basketball back in the conversation. And I know we're committed, the league is committed, and other programs around our conference are committed.
Real briefly, and I don't know if most of our viewers or fans would know how this works, but can you talk about the units? And that's
basically the units are worth $250,000.
So what is a unit?
And a unit basically is how many slots you have per round. So right now we have 3 slots, and we're in the first round. And so depending on how far we advance, we gain units, and then those units are averaged over a 6-year period of time. And so obviously the more teams you have in the tournament, the more units you'll have, the more they advance, the more units you'll have, which means more revenue for our conference, which then goes into the big bucket and is divided among the 14 programs. And so what we have to do is we have to get more units, because right now we're leaving a lot of money on the table.
Sure.
And if we get back to an average position of the other big 4 conferences, that can mean significant dollars back to each program that we're leaving on the table by not being as competitive in men's basketball and not being in the conversation. And so that's how the units work. And our job is to grab those units and get back in the NCAA tournament. As a conference, obviously for Ole Miss, we have to do that. But as a league, we have to get better.
So is it safe to say that as an Ole Miss fan, we need to be cheering for SEC teams every time they win? Ole Miss is actually benefiting from that financially.
We want Florida, Tennessee, and Kentucky to go as far as possible.
It's all equal, 14 ways.
And so whatever Florida earns in units, that's shared 14 ways. Whatever Tennessee earns, whatever Kentucky earns, that all goes back into the league and helps us. And so absolutely, we have to be an SEC fan in March Madness.
Big time. So, an SEC West opponent made a pretty big splash. This has been all over ESPN.
I heard about that.
Yeah, you heard about that?
Yeah.
So Auburn hired Bruce Pearl, and it's a unique hire. I mean, it is a unique hire, and it's kind of a double question I want to ask you. Is that hire has what's called a show cause, I guess, sanction on top of that. So I'm going to ask you to explain that to our viewers and then talk about what that hire kind of means to the conference. What's the bigger picture of that?
Right. Yeah, so 2 layers to that. The show cause piece is, obviously Coach Pearl, well documented, had some NCAA issues at Tennessee, was let go of his position. They had some penalties, some sanctions, not only to the institution, but also to the individuals, including Coach Pearl, and they put a show cause on Coach Pearl for 3 years, which expires in August.
Okay.
But until that August period, Auburn will have to go in front of a NCAA committee and show cause why they should hire Coach Pearl and what they will do to basically protect their program from any further NCAA rule violations, any other sanctions. And so it's not something that can't be overcome. But it does, provide some pause, I think, in any leader that's trying to hire a coach that has that attached to him. And so I'm sure Auburn did their due diligence among the NCAA, among the conference, to say, hey, we can weather this, pretty short window, really August. And then after that, he's wide open. And so really what show cause means, no restrictions after that August.
Okay.
Show cause is you have to show cause why you want to hire Coach Pearl, what you will do to protect your program. And then move ahead. And so essentially he's restricted, to on-campus activities until August. And then after that he'll be free and clear. So that's the show cause part. Well, I think what it does for the league is back to what we talked about before. We've almost talked ourselves out of good basketball in the SEC. I think what Bruce Pearl does is he talks us back into the conversation overnight. And so how many times have they mentioned Auburn basketball in the last 10 years compared to the last 24 hours?
Right.
And so I think you look at us, 9-9 in the league, maybe in other years where we're back in the conversation, we win more non-conference games. What Bruce Pearl does is he elevates the profile of our conference. Now we have to win. We have to do it on the court. But I think what he does is he brings instant credibility back from a marketing standpoint, a branding standpoint, that what are they doing in the SEC? They're committed, to great basketball and high-profile basketball in the SEC. So I think it helps. I talked to Andy about it this morning, and he's on board with it. He thinks it's great. He's always gotten along with Coach Pearl. And we both think it's great for the league to get basketball, again, relevant and back on the dance floor to be talked about.
Very true. So switching gears a little bit, several sports are getting into conference play. You've got baseball and softball. Baseball is coming off a big weekend, an incredible Friday night and a nearly incredible Saturday.
Right.
And softball has had some really exciting moments.
No question.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about where those programs are.
Yeah, softball, they went out to California and had 4 straight days of rain, which
didn't play a game.
Has never happened.
I don't think they played a single game.
They didn't play a game, but they were able to work out a deal where they could go fly into Salt Lake City, play the University of Utah. And on that Monday, we had a perfect game, the first perfect game by Carly Hummel in our history of our program. So that kind of provided us some momentum. And then we went into that next Friday, and we went to Florida, and we beat them on Friday night behind Carly. And, we didn't finish the series, but, had them down 3-2, going into the latter half of the game on Saturday. Ended up, losing that game and the next game. But I think what it shows is that we can compete. And again, same kind of thing. We're kind of rebuilding in softball, missing some pieces. The mound is so critical. So I think adding some depth there. Alabama kind of took it to us this past weekend. but we showed sparks, and I think that's what we have to do is look at how does that program improve each weekend, and what are the pieces that we can build on. 10 out of 13 programs in the SEC are currently ranked in the top 30 this week, and so again, if you get in the upper half of this conference in softball, you're in the dance. You're making the NCAA tournament because softball is really good. So we're excited about what's happening with softball, but we know we have a little ways to go to kind of climb that SEC mountain. Baseball. I love the attitude of our team. I love the energy level. Mike, as we talked last season, as we evaluated last season, his deal was we got to get toughness, and so we added a new strength coach. Our older guys look different. Their bodies look different. We cut body fats. They got stronger. You look at our home run totals. You look at the number of hits we've already had. We were already surpassed last year in many categories. Home runs, one of them, over the whole season. We've only played, 21 games. So I think we're off to a really good start, but we also know we're in the SEC. And so each weekend is going to be a battle. But I think we showed what we're capable of by winning that first game, leading all the way, 2 strikes with 2 outs, in the bottom of the ninth. Had a kind of a unique deal where the injured guy, hits a home run to tie the game. How many times is that going to happen?
Right.
So we're right there. And I love what this team is doing, and these coaches have really dialed in, I think, with a new approach to be more aggressive. We got a lot of young guys that are super talented, that are playing extremely well. And so I think the key with them is consistency and getting through the gauntlet of the SEC, competition that we have to play week in and week out. So we're excited about baseball. And obviously we have the best environment in college baseball. We got fireworks approved to shoot off after the game on Friday night, thanks to Jason List and our marketing staff to get that done. So, again, a great atmosphere, and there's no reason not to come out and support these 2 teams.
Yeah, it's going to be
softball and baseball.
A big weekend. And I'll plug the season. The first episode of the baseball version of that is incredible. It's probably one of the best episodes of the season we've ever done.
I watched it
really,
last
really
week,
good.
and that's the first time we've done that, correct?
Yeah, we've done little one-off episodes here and there.
Versions,
yeah, but that's like the first real deal, like full access.
I think if you watch that, you'll see what goes into
Right.
it, how intense Coach Bianco and his staff are. You also have to have fun too, so you see
Right.
some fun moments. But you look at the intensity that it takes to compete in baseball in this league, and really what goes into it. The scouting reports, and I think it paints a great picture of how high level we run our baseball program.
I could not agree more.
The key is we got to get more staff so we can do that for more sports.
That's right.
I'm sure you'll ask.
That's
for
exactly
that.
right. That's exactly right. Mike is over there cheering.
He's over there clapping already.
Yep. So into the Ask Ross version or part of the show, we've had several questions come in this morning about one thing. And they're about the invitational tournaments. So you have the NIT and you have the CBI, you have the CIT, and so how does all that work?
Well, the goal is to be in the NCAA tournament. To be one of 68 chosen, either automatic or at large, and so that's the goal every year. But then after that, the NIT is a great tournament. It's the oldest established tournament in college basketball. It's run by the NCAA, so you have a lot of the same characteristics of if you go to the NCAA tournament. In terms of travel and how the sites work and those sort of things. And so that's the secondary goal, is to make the NIT. And I thought we had a chance. We beat LSU, we beat Missouri, we finished ahead of them in the league, yet they still went. And I think it came down to probably one non-conference game. If we would have won that, we probably were in, or another conference game or 2. We might be in the NCAA tournament. So we were really close, I think, to the NIT. After that, Andy and I talked about 2 or 3 weeks ago to say, look, if we're not in the big dance and we're not in the NIT, that's really the expectation. And so we were going to pass on those other tournaments and not be included in those fields, even though it would have helped some of our young guys to practice and play. We felt we could do more in the gym, with one-on-one, workouts with those guys to get them better versus playing. And really, it's really about expectations. NCAA is our goal. And we just don't think that those tournaments were for our program this year. They might be in the future, we don't know. But this year, we really just turned down the opportunity to be in those tournaments because of expectation, and really where our program is, and trying to kind of reload a little bit, and be able to develop our guys, off the court, through our coaches versus the playing side of it. And then you look at the field of those tournaments, and is that who we aspire to be? No,
Right.
We aspire to be in the big dance, and I think that's about expectations.
Good answer. Good answer. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So stick around for a quick update on what's happening this week on campus, followed by a sneak peek at the season. Actually, I'm seeing heads turning that there will not be a sneak peek of the season, but definitely check out the season Ole Miss baseball. It's on the Vimeo channel. It's on Rebel Vision. I believe it's even on YouTube as well. But check that out. It'll give you a great inside look at the baseball program and Coach Mike Bianco and where this team is headed. And we'll see you back here in 2 weeks on Studio 18 Live, presented by Old Venice Pizza Company.
This week on campus. Today, your Ole Miss men's tennis team squares off with the number 4 ranked Trojans of Southern Cal at the Tennis Center beginning at 2 p.m. Then tonight, the Rebel softball team hosts Louisiana Tech. First pitch is scheduled for 6 p.m. The Ole Miss baseball team returns back to Swayze Field to host Arkansas State in a midweek non-conference game. First pitch is scheduled for 6:30 p.m. On Friday, the Ole Miss track and field program will host its high school invitational before hosting the Ole Miss Invitational the following day. Both meets are free admission. Men's tennis stays at home this weekend with their first SEC opponent, Arkansas, on Friday at 2 p.m. and then again against LSU on Sunday at 1 p.m. The Rebel softball team continues its homestand this weekend as they host Arkansas in a 3-game series beginning Friday night at 6 p.m. Saturday's game is slated for 2 p.m., and the team closes out the series on Sunday with the first pitch slated for 3 p.m. And the number 14 ranked Rebel baseball team hosts Missouri for its SEC home opener this weekend. The 3-game series begins Friday night at 6:30 p.m. The game will be followed by the first of 5 Friday night fireworks shows. Saturday, the two teams resume their series with first pitch slated at 1:30 p.m. The series concludes Sunday with a 1:30 p.m. start time. See you at Swayze. A reminder that every Monday night through March, you can catch David Kellum at Buffalo Wild Wings hosting Reb Talk. Show goes live at 7 p.m. 2014 football season tickets are ready and available for purchase. Reserve your tickets today and be entered into our sellout sweepstakes, where you have a chance to win a $500 shopping spree inside the Ole Miss football equipment room, a dinner for you and 19 of your closest friends on the field at Vaught Hemingway Stadium, or a trip for 2 with the team to College Station this upcoming season when the Rebels visit Texas A&M. For information on this and all things Ole Miss athletics, visit OleMissSports.com.